Hi everybody, welcome to Jenny's Crafting Hub. I'm Jenny and I've had a request for a zipped cosmetic bag, but I've also had a request for projects to do with fat quarters. So I thought I'd combine the two and have a go at a zipped cosmetic bag with lining. So what you're going to need for this, a zip. Now, depending on the length of your zip, I always go for longer zips, and then you can cut it down if you want to. But my zip today is about 10.5 inches. And then I've got 2 fat quarters. So I've got this lovely, this is going to be my outer fabric, and then the lining is going to be grey. Now, they're from the same pack, so they coordinate very nicely. I've already chopped the selvage off, and I'm now going to create 2 pieces using the outer fabric and 2 pieces using the lining fabric, and I'm going to cut them to, I think I'm going to go for possibly 9-inch square maybe, or maybe we'll go, because my zip is 10.5, let's do 8.5. So I'm going to just, ooh, this is not good. I'm just going to move you slightly so you can see my cutting area. And on the reverse of the fat quarter fabric, I'm going to draw 2 8.5-inch squares. In fact, we will go 9, but because we'll need to allow for the seam allowance, won't we? So 8, 9, that way. Fat quarters are great because you can use them for lots of different things. This is a cosmetic bag. I've used fat quarters to make tote bags. I've used it to make tissue holders, cushion covers, teddy bears, all sorts of different things. There are loads of projects out there that you can do with your fat quarters. So I'm just drawing using a ruler and a fabric pen. This is a heat erasable fabric pen, which is great. So that's on that bit, and I'll just do the same on the lining. I have pre-pressed these fat quarters. I haven't washed them. The only time I would wash fabric is if I'm going to make clothing out of it, because you need to know whether the fabric will shrink, etc. So whereas with any projects that I'm making for the home or for things like this, I wouldn't wash it, purely for the fact that it, you know, it's not going to go through the washing machine. So we don't need to worry. Now, if you wanted to make it a bit more padded, or quilt it or anything like that, you could do that now, if that's what you wanted to do, once you've cut your fabric out. And I'm going to use my long ruler and my rotary cutter just to make sure that I get my cut as accurate as possible. You can use scissors, don't worry if you haven't got a rotary cutter, it's not a major issue. The only thing I would say is never use paper scissors on fabric. because paper blunts scissors and you don't want your fabric cutting at horrible angles. So I'm just using the lines that I've created and my ruler to cut. This is the bit with when you're making anything. I mean, obviously I'm not using a pattern here. I'm just going, creating something off the cuff, as it were. But the bit that normally takes the time is the cutting out, be it of the pattern and the fabric. Don't throw your scraps away, because you never know. You might have a project that you could use them on. So, there's my lining pieces. Now, because this looks like a directional, I've drawn it on the back as well, but I've done it so that the hills are pointing upwards. And that's something you might want to be aware of when you're attaching it. If it's a non-directional print, it's not a problem. You could make a feature out of it if you wanted to. It's entirely up to you. If there's a particular part of your fabric that you want, you can do something that we call fussy cutting. But again, that's entirely up to you. Always make sure that you put your safety catch back on your rotary cutter when you finish cutting, because these are extremely sharp blades and you don't want to cut yourself, because believe me, I've done that and it's rather painful. But also make sure you're cutting away from you. So I now have 2 pieces for the outer of my bag, and I have 2 pieces for the inner of my bag. Just going to move some stuff about so that I can bring the camera closer while I am doing the sewing. I've already attached my thread. In fact, let's do some zooming. Which way do we go? There we go. And then we'll need to the camera is actually charging at the minute, so I can't really move it. So, hello. So I've now got 2 outer pieces and 2 inner pieces, and I need to attach my zip. So what I do, I place my outer piece right side up. I then take my zip and I place that right sides together with my fabric. And then I take a piece of my lining and I place that on top. So I am sandwiching my zip between the pieces of fabric. And I am actually just going to pin. You don't have to. Some people do, some people don't. Normally I wouldn't, but because I haven't done a zip for a while, I want to make sure that everything is lined up beautifully for me. So, just get it all lined up so that you have a little sandwich of the fabric, your zip, together. Now, you can put a zipper foot on if you have one, but if you're careful, you should be able to do it without. Now, I am just, the opening of the zip, it's open, so I'm just going to make my life a little bit easier. I'm just going to tack across the top there to keep it closed, so it'll stay closed. Because it'll help me with my sewing. Now I've got a coordinating thread. I've got a new needle because that's important. They reckon you should change your needles. I'm just going to move myself over so you can see what I'm doing. I'm just going to go forwards and backwards. I might just ask, Mr. Harris,
yes,
could you come and, because I'm not convinced.
what's up, babe?
There we go. So what you want to make sure now is that your presser foot is lined up next to the coils. Always go forwards and backwards and take your pins out as you go. Now, I'll pop that pin there. This is going to be the tricky bit because you can see the presser foot is in the way. So what I do, not the presser foot, the zip. That's all I do, is I take it and I move it to where I've already sewn. If you wanted to add any applique or embroidery or anything like that, I would do that to your section before you'd put your zip in. I think that's important to do that. And also, always go forwards and backwards at the end, just to strengthen your stitch. So there is my side. I'm just going to tack over that bit there as well. Just to make sure that when I open my zip, it stays closed. Okay, so you can see that now I have my side. Now, what I'm going to do I want to keep these bits out of the way when I'm sewing the next part. So to do that, I need to top stitch along this side. So I'm going to use my presser foot as a guide. I'm going to use my presser foot as a guide, and I'm going to lengthen my stitch. My go-to stitch length on my straight stitch is 2.5, so I just lengthen it to 5 for top stitching. And I'm literally holding the fabric, holding the zipper, just going to top stitch. Right. And when I come to the zip, there we go. But if you hold everything flat, it enables you to create that beautiful line. I've made sure that I have coordinating thread, so the thread I'm using is green, not green, grey, because obviously I've got a grey lining, I've got grey in the front of the fabric, and I've chosen a grey zip. So there is the top stitch. Now, we need to attach the other side. So, again, same principle. Fabric right side up, zip right side down, like so, and then lining on top. And again, I am just going to pin to make sure all my layers, you want to make sure that your sides meet up. And I want all my layers to stay together. So you could pin, you could clip. I have got clips. Clipping's another good thing to do. So I'm just going to do that. And actually, I'm going to sew from the fabric side this time, because I want to be able to see. So again, line your foot up. Oh, don't forget to go back to your original stitch length. Forwards and backwards at the beginning. Now I'm coming up to the zip part, so I'm going to lift my fabric and I'm going to unzip. And try not to catch your fabric when you unzip. She says, there we go. So then just make sure everything's lined up. Again. Forwards and backwards at the end. So there you can see the pouch is coming together very nicely. So again, I'm just going to do a top stitch to hold everything down. Using my foot as a guide to keep it straight and holding everything back. This is the part where you want it to look, I think top stitching gives it a bit of a professional finish, but not only that, it's practical because it helps. Boom. There we go. And that is one zip in. So now we have our pieces. So we want to line it up. And this is what I'm going to do. Open my zip and I'm going to line up my outer fabric, and I'm going to just pop a clip right by the zip, because what I want to do is line up my lining as well, but when I sew, I want my zip to go towards my lining. So this is the fiddly bit. But remember, you're in charge and you can pin it and clip it as much or as little as you want. So I'm just going to stick a clip there. And I'm literally just doing it to just at that point, because the rest of it will be fine, I am sure. But I just want that bit to be as close as possible. So I'm just going back to my 2.5. Oh, there we go. Now, what I'm going to do is, starting at one of the seams, I'm going to go down, across. I'm going to leave a gap of about 3 inches maybe, across, up and all the way round. So let's get that. Let's do the tricky bit first, because I think that's, and I'm literally going to use the edge of my presser foot as my guide for my seam allowance. Your seam allowance can be whatever you like. Usually most people go with 1/4 inch. Don't forget to go forwards and backwards. Okay, make sure your fabric's lining up. Now, when it comes to leaving your gap in the bottom of the lining, I like to stop. I go backwards a couple of stitches, forwards a couple of stitches over the ones that I've just gone backwards on. Then I lift my needle up, I pull my fabric through as far as I want it to go, and then I carry on sewing and I go back. and I go forwards. I do not cut my thread, and you will see why shortly. So we're just the one thing you need to make sure you do is make sure that your seam allowance is the same all the way around your bag. Don't forget to leave your zip open, because if you don't, you'll struggle when you come to turn the bag out. Take your time going over the zip. There is no rush. Taken all my clips out now, and I'm just going to make sure that my bag lines up. There we go. That was it, just it hitting the teeth slightly. But machines are designed, certainly the newer ones, to be robust. So now you can keep going. Oh, my pen pot just fell down. Scared me then, that did. Literally going to come to the bit where you were before. Just go back a bit. Right. So, there's my gap. And you'll see I've got the thread because I didn't cut my needles. So I'm just going to trim those bits off now. And I'm going to box my corners. Now, some patterns will have the box bits already done. Some might not. So I'm going to show you how to do it. I'm going to take the line in first. And I'm going to open out the corner. Like so. And I'm just going to butt my two seams that I have sewn together. Like so. And you can feel that. And then I'm just going to, using my sewing plate on the bottom, I'm going to take the point to the inch mark. And then all I'm going to do is sew straight across that triangle. I might go back as well, just to give me that bit of strength in my corner. And then I'm going to do the same on the other side, and you do the same with the corners on the main fabric as well, because hopefully what will happen then is your bag will have a square bottom, and it just means you can stand it up without too much problem. Now you can, if you want to, measure and mark so that they are all equal. I usually, depending on the size of my bag, do 2 inches and draw a line across where I'm going to do it, because that helps, and then it I measure all 4 corners first to make it more accurate. So there's those 2. So now, because I'm going to do the same with the outer. Feel where your seams are. Because this is only a small bag as well, you don't want massive corners. Oh, I just got it caught a bit there. So, there we have it. So now, just to reduce some of the bulk, I'm just going to chop those bits off. I'm going to trim back this zip. Just to take away the bulk as well. There we go. Any loose threads you can snip off. And then we're going to pull our bag through the gap in the lining, through the opening in the zip, we're going to push out our corners, our little boxy bits. Now, I personally like to hand sew the opening closed using a ladder stitch, because what you will notice is as you do it, the bits will automatically want to fold in. But just for time today, I'm going to run it under the machine. As I say, normally I would hand stitch it closed using the ladder stitch, because then people don't see the hole in the lining. But just for today, I'm using the machine. Trim off your bits, push your lining inside. Give it a little shake, and then just check you've got no. There is one little cosmetic bag slash pouch, fully lined with a zip, and it's ready to go. So thanks for watching. I hope for those of you that wanted to see that, that's helped. I will also pop this video on my YouTube channel so that you can watch it over and over again, just to remind yourself. But yeah, might even do a giveaway. Thanks for watching. Bye.